out.
Reminder that Callista's been getting through consistently as a blue first pick. Will mFire finally get the respect ban? Because what? Najin have spent 2 games effectively banning 3 champions from GBM. That's had no effect.
It really hasn't. Well, Gangplank banned yet again after that very nice performance GBM had in the first match of this series. Azir and Shen, and now TF banned the opposite direction. Again, that is a champion that has now forced Jin to ban it instead of Najin because Najin is on the red side. So it's a nice time actually to sub in tank because that TF as a last pick is a major threat.
It's a happy time in the meta where Twisted Fate is relevant but not a first pick champion. So still sees respect as a red side last pick potential, especially from tank as you mentioned, but doesn't dominate the meta as Callista's finally banned away with the last ban. Opens up Chaser on the Callista. So early pressure jungler for Jin Greenwood.
Yeah, the Elise actually prioritized this game. They just took Callista first on blue side and let the Elise through. And will we see how Tom catch?
We won't see both these champions in the first rotation for sure. The dream though?
I think you just take Kennen here if you're Najin. Take it away, try and get OQ that advantage. And a Fizz could come through, but again, the Malphite is... We've seen what happens in that lane in the finals. They're going to grab the Victor for tank instead.
And it still effectively feels like, let's ask GBM a question again. 3 bans in both games. Picked the Gangplank in first game, carry performance, been banned away since. Second game, defaulted to Victor. Did fine. This time it's taken away. So now the question is, with all the bans and now the Victor takeaway, where does GBM go on those? Flashing Fiora, and it's not outside the realm of possibility that this is the next in the line of champions for GBM.
Yeah, I don't know much about this matchup versus Victor, but should be able to get on top of a low mobility Victor and then try and block out some of his damage with the riposte. And we'll be switching over to the blind pick. Yes, Diana maybe.
Diana's the laning matchup. You can take teleport and still do very well in the lane. It's not 5-16, so Mordekaiser is still just a dream in the heart of Right Atlas at the moment, but the Malphite is going to be locked in. It's the reliable top laner. It's worked so well for Trace. Honestly, next season, this could be one of his staples for sure.
It also just shuts down the Fizz pick. That's the nice aspect about it, is that when you're worried about a carry top laner like Duke, early picking Malphite denies so much of what he can do, and he's just forced into Maokai again.
It only took, what, 8 seconds of the pick ban to realize that Maokai's the only place to go, just because we saw someone try to first pick Fizz, and that, of course, was Someday in Katie Rolster versus SKT, the Champions Final. And look, the Shen matchup Fizz not great. The Malphite matchup, honestly, seems even worse, because Malphite's got that AoE to really control the minion wave in a way Shen struggles to.
So, Maokai and Rek'Sai eventually chosen here, and now we are going to see the mid lane pick revealed. What is GBM going to play into the...
Yasuo?
Could play Yasuo. Remember, he can also play Ahri, so that is yet another potential pickup there.
Flashing the Zillion. We saw Zillion in the international wildcard. I see you shaking your head. You don't believe in the Zillion.
I do not believe in the Zillion. There's just not enough damage on this
Malphite
team.
time on screen. Sorry, it's Yasuo time. Look at this lineup. We've got the Ashe initiate. We've already got the Braum available in the last round. Braum, Ashe, the strong laning duo. They've got the magic damage from the likes of Malphite and Elise, but they could go safer. They could go for the Orianna. You talked about kite comps. Ori certainly starts one of those.
I don't know about the Ashe combined with the Ori here. It does mean that they may have some damage issues in the late game. I wasn't a fan of the Yasuo combined with the Ashe either. I think with the Malphite you have enough initiation, but that will be just a lock-in of Sivir at the end for OQ. So an all-in engaged composition. Najin trying to get in there with the Kennen, with the Maokai this game, but Jin. The nice thing about having the Orianna is that has always been GBM's signature champion.
Absolutely. Right from when he debuted on CJ Entus, he was always about the Orianna. Najin can at least take comfort in the fact that the teleport plays from Maokai from Duke were really good last game. So if Duke and the On the Hunt helps propel Pure into the backline and they can account for Pilot, maybe there's a way back into this series, but it's looking like a real uphill battle for Najin.
And Papa Smithy, I'm just wondering, sure, the Callista's dangerous, the GP has proven to be dangerous, the Lulu is a flex pick for Jin, but the Malphite, Najin has now lost 4 games in a row to Malphite.
Yep.
I think this is going to be number 5. I don't nothing makes me believe that they understand how to play against mFire yet. We saw Duke diving and getting outplayed by Trace in the last game.
OQ still remembers his attempt to dive a mFire.
Why would you do that? So I think this is just great drafting. And Janair realizes that this mFire has just been an unconquerable mountain for Najin mFire, where we're going to get into Game 3 right now.
소환사의 협곡에 오신 것을 환영합니다.
Well, we're going into OQ fighting.
OQ fighting.
We're going into Game 3 right now with Janair with a 2-0 lead, and I don't know about this, Papa Smithy. Just from a mental angle, you basically put Tank and Peanut into the game that pins your hopes on the World Championship, the game that your team has been waiting this entire year to play. That is the ultimate test over their mental fortitude that you could really possibly imagine.
Let's be honest, Monte Cristo. The likes, as we could see some sort of engage, but not happening. The likes of Watch and Goong, probably not going to be on this lineup much longer. They might be squad players, but you don't feel like Najin's really going to move forward with both of those in starting positions. Maybe this is just a preview of the Najin we will see in 2016. It's weird to say that they're looking ahead, but if they do thrive in this high-pressure situation, it does serve them really well, even if they go down fighting 3-1, let's say. A win for this lineup, this game, even if it's not a series win, is a vote of confidence in the future of Najin mFire.
I guess. I just have to disagree with you. There's no way the coaches can know how these two players will perform in this kind of stress because there's simply no data.
And that's the point I was going to say, though, is that think about how many competitive games experience you're ripping out, taking the likes of Watch and Goong out of the lineup. Unbelievable amount of games these players have played. They've been stalwarts for so long. The data's coming on Peanut and Tank and starting now.
I guess so. And Pure will get a little bit of harassment in right there. Janair will take away the blue buff, and actually Pure may have actually taken one of those little golems. I didn't actually see what happened over there, but meanwhile, harassment from Che is going to try and get a gank onto Tank. Gank the Tank. Not going to work, misses the Q.
Should note that this is a red side lane swap, as the bot lane has been switched top for Najin mFire. They're trying something different. It's been standard lanes 2 games in a row, and that certainly didn't work out for Najin, even though the laning phase between the 2v2 is working out. The difference you can say is this opens up Pure for Roams. Level 3 is usually when he gets all 3 abilities and can get a stun out. Theoretically possible too, but it's weird for them to pick Sivir Kennen and lane swap, but they're trying something different in multiple ways this game.
Well, Kennen just such an inefficient champion when it comes to being in a lane swap situation, though. Like you said, you have to have level 3 to really reliably get that stun out, and even then it takes a little bit of time.
Sure.
So when he has that strong laning phase, when you want to be denying, and yeah, Pure just sitting up here in the top side right now, threatening perhaps a position on the map, but just collecting some experience, and that's going to be about it. No hint of moving that support down yet. Duke just continuing with a jungle follow right now. And Trace is going to be able to probably break this freeze in the top side once Chaser gets up there with him.
Tank strikes me as a manly player. I like the fact that his name's in all caps. That's the first kind of indications that he thinks good about himself. Like, all right, I'm Tank. Now, you see GBN. That's an abbreviation. That should be in caps. But Tank's got his name in all in caps. But he's taken Barrier, and that's pretty damn brave against the likes of Elise and Ash.
Yeah, that one catch-out could be his downfall, but he, fortunately for him, has a nice front line to block a lot of those skill shots. As long as he can make it out of the laning phase okay, which shouldn't be too bad against an Orianna. We'll see how it plays out. While Pilot and Che going to donate some farm over to Duke. Trace has to overextend pretty far up, does have some nice wards, though, in the river to help him out with that vision, and Chaser playing around the top side of the map at the moment.
Just trying to work out what barrier means. Let's think about the kind of defensive summoner options. He had Ghost, you know, obviously for the movement speed. That's the least combat stats in that particular one. Think about the options between Cleanse, Heal, and Barrier. It seems like he didn't want the Cleanse, so he had the choice between Heal and Barrier. Heal at least gives you that burst of movement speed that might get you away from a projectile. Barrier is the most defensive option, or gives you the most selfish defensive stats in a lane against Orianna. So what is the scenario where it works best? Is that where you have been hit by the mFire ultimate and you're going to take burst and maybe live long enough to put out your ult? It's just weird that in the paper, scissors, rock of defensive summoners, he took Barrier.
I think that he is worried about getting hit by the Malphite ult and then a follow-up Orianna ult, and it's just going to give him front-loaded survivability because it does act as an overshield, so it won't actually cut into his HP. Again, questions about that for sure, but I would believe that that's what he's thinking. He's looking forward to some late-game team fights.
And maybe that's just being a mid to short-range mage and saying, look, I'm probably going to take some damage. I'll live long enough for a rotation, maybe two, if I have that selfish, huge burst of shield.
Peanut hunting around in the enemy jungle right now, not going to find much of anything to farm, already having been cleared out by Chaser.
Speaking of farming, look at that, 18 to 8.
That's pretty substantial. He has been looking around these lanes quite a bit, and you know that is Peanut. Peanut does like to gank early and often. He is a much more gank-oriented player than Watch is.
Speaking of ganks, 3 members in the top side.
Trace is going to recall right here.
Gank Trace. New strategy.
Peanut will be protected. He does have the Wolf Spirit, so they know definitively that nobody is in that lane. And here's a TP actually coming in already for Malphite. Malphite does go back and pick up the Chain Vest. So this would be quite difficult. I mean, Sivir has no AD yet, so that gank probably not going to be successful.
The theory there's no vision on the map whatsoever in the jungle from Jin, so there was no information as to where the pathing had gone apart from the level 1 pathing, so maybe they were just being hopeful they could pick up a gank, but this Trace we're talking about does a lot of living when it comes to being focused out in the top lane.
Especially the itemization just wasn't there yet. You have no combat stats beside a Chilling Smite onto Peanut. You have only at that point the Doran's Blade on OQ, and coming back with the Chain Vest means that that's just not going to happen, even though he's not level 6 yet. And they also saw Chaser with the Wolf Spirit moving into that top side. So all the lanes going to normalize right now. Pretty much everything even across the board. A few CS here, a few CS there, but nothing too impactful yet, especially in terms of those items. GBM plopping down a pink ward right now, and will take his blue buff nice and safely.
Only happy thing for Notch is now Duke is in a 1v1 matchup against a Chain Vest as Malphite. So obviously, while that itemization gives a bit of damage, it's not ideal itemization. It does build into Sunfire Cake, which is going to be the big purchase, and just have to deal with the high base magic damage values from Duke. But it's a small advantage, but still, you know, much better against the Sivir than it is against the Malphite.
Yeah, we did see Trace go for that early cowl in the same matchup in the last game, so he won't have that same kind of flexibility when it comes to the staying power. They're just going to ward very actively in this top side. Pink wards. Scuttler already taken another pink, and Chaser not going to check that dot brush in the river. Bit of a mistake right there as he looks to move through the mid lane.
As you mentioned, it was a mistake. Some junglers, of course, when the pressure is immense from the enemy team, don't have the luxury of checking that bush. When it's Victor versus Orianna and wave clear wars, that's just a pathing error.
Yeah, and especially when you have lots of wards up in that top river too, so there's no chance of a real pincer attack coming in from the other team. Peanut is here with Pure and OQ. Chaser, that ult just isn't going to do what it used to from Sivir. They draw out the flash from Chaser. They may be able to get this red buff, but remember, Sivir ult is down. Guess what's up? Boy. Ash Arrow is here, and there we go. They're going to cut him off. Goodbye, Peanut. And they will finish it off eventually. Ash Arrow's still up. They're going to try and follow this up. Nice spell shield block by OQ. Good patience.
Really good spell shield use. Captain Jackass was always famous with that ability. Will they get out, though? There's the stun onto him, but
gonna get the slow, and there's Braum coming in, and just a little bit more flash over. No, just out of range. Nice gravity field from Tank. Bit of a split call there from Jin. They could have actually flashed together on that and probably picked up the kill, but Che going in, Pilot not following up immediately.
Lots of summoners used. Duke didn't try to teleport despite having teleport advantage. Now Trace would have had to use his ult to be able to stop it, but the ult's on a pretty long cooldown, so was kind of the mind games going up top. Never found an angle. Results first blood to Jeanette.
Pilot was very smart to hold that arrow right there. He picks up the first blood kill, able to take that small advantage. And this is just Peanut things right here. He called for an invade right there. They didn't have necessarily the angle on the mid lane. GBM was the first one to arrive to that fight. And they will give up a red buff onto the AD carry of Janair.
Just didn't get any purchase from the On The Hunt at all. This is patch 5.15, so of course the On The Hunt. The big nerf, apart from just general movement speed, is the fact that the buff duration basically requires you to be in range straight away. Otherwise, you're just going to elapse by the time you get, because the buff duration isn't static. It's not 3 seconds wherever you are, whenever you get into the aura. It starts from the moment the ability is cast, and allowed the Sivir to get in position, but they quickly realized they had to kite away when they were just so caught in the enemy jungle.
Just pretty poorly conceived invade altogether there by Najin and mFire, and that's going to cause them to fall back once again in this game. Fortunately, Duke is actually doing a great job of dominating this top lane matchup, the advantage that he didn't have last time, thanks to that itemization choice made by Trace, who thought he might be in that 2v1 for a little bit longer.
You can see why Peanut's been empowered to counter jungle, because look at the CS values. 16 CS advantage in top, 15 CS advantage in mid. Even the Sivir's winning as well, so there's been lane pressure in all 3 lanes. Now, that was an overreach with the red buff invade, but Najin at least understand. Pushing out 3 lanes, controlling 3 waves, and invading is the name of the game, and Chase is countering this by just sticking in a lane, because his jungle has been so ruined by the counter jungling by Peanut.
Well, he is going to help push out right now. Trace needs a bit of a respite just so he can get back to base and try and deal with this item differential that exists between him and Duke. Peanut looking around. Tank has been opened up, and there's the warning pings coming down from Janair. They know this is happening. Pink Ward stepped on by Tank, so Pilot and Che backing off. They have plenty of crowd control, and Najin calling for the dragon.
At least was last in top, so it would be a long route over to the dragon. Waiting for Hawk Shot, hasn't been used yet from the Ashe. Might not be on cooldown still yet, 18 seconds off cooldown. Smart from Najin. They've had so much map pressure in all 3 lanes. The invades have been regular. The first dragon should be easily picked up, and their first of the series.
Yeah, their first in 3. No, it's not.
No,
they got one
at the end
of the last
2
game.
in a row for Najin, but doesn't really mean much.
No, it doesn't. But this is the start of something new for Najin if they can maintain that control over the Dragon Pit. Meanwhile, Janair just returning. Gold lead goes over to Najin just by a hair. It looks like it has evened up now, so first blood gold not doing work when it compares to the actual farm edge that Najin's been able to accrue.
Itemization from Chaser on Elise seems to be the new normal. People have been picking up that Rune Glaive. We saw Bengi do it with great reliability in the Champions Final. And this gives you a lot of damage. The new Rune Glaive does really work well with Elise. Helps the Chaser. Tank flashes, okay.
Didn't know. I think that course Q was going to miss from Braum, and he was very scared about the follow-up into the Cocoon. And that's one of the things about Winter's Bite. 40% slow on that Braum Q. Super easy to hit the Cocoon afterwards. So that is, I think, a well-warranted flash.
Didn't have the luxury of the cleanse that seemed to be crying out when you saw the likes of Elise, Ashe, and Braum on the enemy team. Because he took the barrier, doesn't give him any utility against what would be certain death if all those abilities landed in unison. Has to flash.
Okay, well, OQ still has the wave clear. He's actually managed to chip that turret down to 50%, and Najin again posturing around the bottom side of the jungler. Chaser will take out a little bit of their vision. They want Chaser to walk in here. Pings from Najin down onto that red pit. And I don't think Chaser's going to walk down there. He's not going to walk into the black jungle while his lane is pushed forward. And indeed, he'll just take a jaunt up into the top river to clean out a Pink Ward instead.
Perhaps the most surprising thing about Jin Air being up 2-0, which is already crazy in its own right against Najin and mFire, is that how few times have we actually mentioned Chaser this series? A team that was solo reliant on him carrying for at least the back end of the summer split, summer season here. He's just been a role player. He's just been doing his job, warding smartly, and he hasn't been relied on to carry whatsoever. They've never reached for the likes of Nidalee. We've theorized that with Nidalee gone, carry jungle pool so limited now that even Echo is mostly being pigeonholed as a mid laner. We thought maybe Chaser would be found out, but just happy to just be a role player And the rest of his team's doing their jobs.
He did have that very nice gank in the last game, though. To his credit, he really did turn the fortunes around. But yes, for the most part, I definitely agree with you. And here comes Duke, has to flash out of the shockwave. But what have they given up for this? Because that is a very costly gank. Here comes a TP. Trace going to come in to save the mid lane turret and take that out immediately. So they decide, Jin Air, that they don't want to trade the top lane outer for the mid lane outer. Probably smart, because opening up the map for Victor is a very poor idea most of the time.
Trying into the bot lane matchup, very similar, both of them going the investment banker route with the Avarice Blade. Ashe has the boots to roam around, but not much to speak about. Both these carries picked for their utility, but OQ, of course, and Civ have been target nerfed in terms of their utility. Really, Najin's going to have to be super on point to make the most out of the On the Hunt.
Okay, well, they really want to dive this now. Najin's response, they have TP advantage, is to just push up on the bottom turret. This is a great answer from Najin. They know that teleport is down, and so that they will be free to make these plays. They also see Elise up at their red buff right now, trying to take that one away.
For all our question marks about Tank and Peanut coming into the lineup in an important game, Najin's play at least makes sense this game. They know where they have the pressure. They've been counter-jungling a lot. They know where they have the power. Okay, they overreach with one gank, but at least it follows rather than game one where they pick to pick comp and let Gangplank free farm in the mid lane.
Yeah. And Chaser shows himself for a couple of auto attacks as a possible response, but there's still not that much damage on the top lane turret as GBM continues to push forward in the mid lane. And Jin Air.
Gank Squad. This is the old Jin Air. How to win. Gank Squad.
Oh. Kennen with the Lightning Rush is going to put a ward and foil that attempt. Can't really take it out afterwards. Meanwhile, Pure and Peanut return up into top lane. They're trying to methodically take down the rest of these towers right now. Sivir walking through her own topside jungle, trying to pick which lane to go to right now to continue to press their advantage, and everyone from Jin Air on that side of the map too.
Now here's a hard question, at least for me to put together. Late game team fights. Oh, draws the flash from Peanut. Late game team fights. These comps, at least as far as I can tell, have pretty similar identity, pretty similar carries. You know, utility carries in the mid, Victor more damage, Orianna more utility. Utility carries from the AD carry position, tanks in the top lane. They seem to do a lot of things similar. So does that mean they share a win condition? Is Dragon, say, for example, the next two Dragons going to Najin, really going to blow this game apart in the late game? Or is there any real differentiators between Jin Air and Najin in this game?
I don't really think there is. I think that if Jin Air can get that good off-screen initiation down with a Malphite ult or an Ashe arrow, that could change things around. But if they can't get that initial burst damage down off of an engage, you could really see Pure with that AoE making the bigger difference in some of these fights. So it should be interesting to see how it plays out. But yeah, I agree with you. I think the late game damage edge does go over to Najin.
It's close though.
It is. It's close.
I like what you say about Pure, because it's going to be pretty squishy. If the game goes long enough, maybe you fit in the Zhonya's, but realistically, Banner of Command's been the big pickup for these Kennen support players. You've got the Sivir ultimate. You have backline threat. If Najin get a Dragon advantage and then can peel off with a Flash Kennen ultimate, that's more than what Jin Air can do. So, yeah, open up Dragon as a win condition. Maybe peeling off into fights with the Sivir ultimate might be the big way for Najin to come away in what is a very even game, at least in terms of team comps.
So Crab has been taken here by Najin. Both top laners returning. Sunfire done for Trace right now. Meanwhile, Duke puts the final touches on a cowl and his Righteous Glory. No one really wanting to take this dragon right now.
Trace didn't have teleport until basically now. I believe it's just up, so can actually go to the top lane. They're hard pushing mid lane though. Even with the regular wave clear, you cannot walk up to a Malphite. It's a nice rotation. Jin Air.
Yeah. Also blocking that death ray from the minion wave with the Unbreakable. OQ may have overcommitted to this. How is he going to get out of this situation?
He's not.
It depends on how far they want to go for this. He's going on a bit of a run. Man, he just lost the dragon for them. He has to kill himself.
Or he secured the dragon. That was the thing, was if they went 4-man collapse onto dragon, maybe they could have picked it up. Is he? Oh, will he get it? Oh, only 2 minions from that wave.
Well, now
you definitely lost.
Yeah, Jin now pushing forward. So after that turret goes down, OQ had plenty of time to get out of that situation, made absolutely the wrong call, and Najin will have to content themselves with the top turret in exchange for the drag.
Now, if there was a clear shot call for him to dangle himself deliciously so they could pick up their second dragon, maybe you can justify it, but that was just poor shot calling or lack of communication, because there never seemed to be Najin collapsing onto that dragon, and OQ just dies for free.
I mean, they didn't really have much of a choice anyway because 4 people stayed back. It was only Pilot moving down there, so that was a good call from Jin not to overcommit to that kill when they could just take the objective instead, and still OQ will be off the map. He will not be farming.
But from a Najin perspective, why is he there? Why is he... The only reason to overextend on the inner turret is to create pressure, and what was the pressure for if the communication wasn't to draw aggro to pick up the dragon? It's just... Well, it can't be that much of a head explosion in terms of positioning in the inner turret.
I think that the communication was that Najin would actually be somewhere on the bottom side, but they tried to defend that mid turret, and I don't think they expected Trace to come immediately into the mid lane like that, but even so, very sloppy shot calling from Najin. And that's been a hallmark of this series. It looked like late in the season they were turning it around, that their shot calling from both ahead and behind had improved, but we're just not seeing very good evidence of it in this series.
Again, the only mathematical equation I can put together, 5 games of mFire, 0 games of solid shot calling from Najin.
The Najinite is real.
The Najinite is so real. What does it look like? Like a rock, I guess.
Looks like a talking rock, you know?
Yeah. It took me so long to work out where Malphite's head was.
Oh, right. It is really hard, isn't it? Because you see his portrait, you can't even really figure out where his head would be on his body.
Stared into that Malphite, whatever the skin, I was like, where's this guy's head? It's screwed on, though, because, man, Malphite has worked so well against poor Najin.
Interesting. Tank actually going for a Rylai's after two upgrades on his core.
Okay, well, pick pressure, for sure. Also means that literally he can just disregard Malphite between the 300 health plus from the Rylai's and the burst shield. So I guess it means he can position very aggressively looking for that pick, but it's definitely something different. Second item, third item maybe, but literally over even a rushed Hex Core.
It's the first time we've ever seen this build. But I agree, in combination with his barrier selection,
he can be so aggressive in terms of positioning.
Yeah. So it's starting to add up a little bit here from the tank side of things. However, total vision dominance around the dragon here, and the bottom side of the map from Jin they've managed to just get a ridiculous number of pink wards on the map yet again.
Just because these comps are so similar, Jin doesn't really need to force anything. That's been their MO all series, is playing pretty defensively, not looking to ever bite off more than they can chew. Even when they made an outright mistake around the 5th dragon last game, gave away a kill, kited away, gave away a dragon that was was absolutely inconsequential in terms of the result of the game. So Jin probably pretty comfortable opting into what is a very equal late game and just trading on the fact that they've been super on form in multiple ways this series.
Yeah, they've definitely had the better shot calling, they've had the better vision control, they've had the better objective control. So I think they're smart. Just wait for Najin to make a mistake again. Sure, it's not exactly the same team you played against, but I think that playing defensively against rookies and against players who have unknown mental fortitude. They're going to go in, though, and Che gets caught out immediately. Glacial Fissure will go down. He's going to get jumped out onto GBM now, but there's not enough follow-up traces here. They're going to have to get a chance to run. Nice gravity field, making sure that he can't ult onto the fleeing members of Najin in that choke point.
See the power of Unbreakable, though. After everything is blown on Che, he's above half health. Pure's the one that goes down. He's the one that initiated the fight, and they didn't even need Malphite to get a pick.
Jay didn't even use any summoners. He just simply jumped right over to GBM. So pretty convincing there from the side of Jin but Najin, you can't really engage fights like that. Flash cannon ulting is almost never successful against good teams. Trace going to get caught out. He will get slowed and stunned, but that's not enough damage to really deal with him at this point in the game, and everybody from Jin there to help him out.
Still a smart idea if just look for a pick on anyone just because they saw Ashe was free hitting the outer turret in the bottom lane. So they wanted to create pressure, release pressure from this outer turret. That's going to take a lot of damage, but not fall down, as OQ's here to pick up the minion wave, but
Yep.
you see him. Of course knows that he's there now, but Najin are trying things, but yeah, as you mentioned, when we see the likes of Gorilla coming in from the flanks on Kennen, you know, just smartly pathing his way into the back of 3 members, absolutely Kennen's support can do wonderful things. But the reason why Kennen was just fell out of the meta, there's a couple of reasons, obviously saw nerfs, but just lightning rushing at the enemy and activating your ult, even with flash, it's just too binary. There's so much counterplay against it. It's one of the same things we would have said against mFire, where you see how smart mFire players have been about juking around vision, using pink wards and flash ult to make plays. Just the simple right-click on people on either of these initiation channels doesn't work. And speaking of initiation,
yeah, Jay has to use his flash right there, jumps over to Chaser, a little bit caught out. A lot of those wards were cleared out by Najin. And so he went on a bit of a risky solo warding mission. Is punished for the loss of his flash, but not punished with a gray screen.
The gray screens have been few and far between for Jin, but Najin have seen a lot of them this series. Not so much this game. It's been pretty close. Only 2 kills actually. Not a very bloodthirsty game at all, despite the fact that we've had dragons go both ways. Usually the low kill games are about getting lots of objectives, but only 5 taken between the 3 turrets and 2 dragons. So low objectives means a lot of farming. Suits someone like GBM on a champion like Orianna. Just pumping up the values. Finally hitting a big team fight and already having a death cap, the first big spike for an Orianna, means that when we finally see the ball on mFire Orianna, the oldest initiation ball carrier duo in the league when it comes to Orianna, it's going to be big damage.
Yeah, we hadn't really even mentioned that, but Jin getting the drop is such a threat because of that combo. Absolutely can put people to rest. And Jin now again reclaiming their position of dominance, and Trace just waiting for people to get into that choke point right by that dragon, although the pink ward already laid down by Najin, so they can't get vision over the wall themselves.
My worry is that, you voted for Najin for late game damage. I don't disagree. Right now, with this Rylai's build, the damage is pretty damn low for Najin. They don't have a lot of damage anywhere, really. Don't really want to rely on Sivir as your only damage source. So Dragon goes through to Jin. They have the earlier power spikes. They've got the death cap onto Orianna. When you look at 2 mid lane champions, you're pretty comfortable that Orianna is going to out DPS your mid laner. That's a problem.
Yeah, well, Jin again, the second game in a row that they've used the mid lane turret going down to just stack up these early dragons, and that's a forced flash from Tank. And
lack of cleanse is really, really costly. When he has to flash from a Winter's Bite, obviously he has to flash from an Ash Arrow, but man, Rylai's into barrier is some questionable item duos, unless you're ahead, unless you can just stand in the front and open up, say, a 6-0 OQ to do damage because you're so tanky in the front line. As this game stands, just blowing that flash on cooldown.
Jin will move forward in this mid lane. One thing that Jin has always excelled at, even in their low points, has been flank warding. And they've got it just nailed in this game. There is no way that anyone is getting in from a flank, and it sets them up for very safe sieges.
I mean, to be fair, Najin don't really have any wards. All those red circles are not wards.
That's true. Very true. Here we go. That's not going to work. Nope. And they come in. They're going to try and turn around. There's the combo. Holy cow, the damage. And they're going to pile on through the turret right there. Chaser getting low. Stuck in the Chaos Storm. Will repel out. Double kill for Trace. Double kill for GBM. And Duke is not even there.
Only the Malphite Orianna finally comes to bear, and it's instant deletion for Najin. And the Najin buff, it's been everlasting for the past 3 years. It's gone, Monte Cristo.
Yeah, I think this is where it actually dies. Watch, this looks like closer and closer. It's going to be his first year since Korea was given a spot at the World Championship that he will not be attending.
And maybe that will be a preview of his career ending as well, Monte Cristo. But this is just so academic. Fjord tries it again, the flash ult's nothing, and this is the old combo we were waiting for.
I mean, just brutal. Straight into the Glacial Fissure, too. There's just so much crowd control slamming Najin under the turret, and Chaser gets out in spite of that CC coming in while he was underneath the Chaos Storm. Trace, and that was very decisive by Jin. They just dove the turret immediately. This is definitely a new side to Jin that we haven't seen. Old Jin probably would have just walked away from that. You just walk out. They knew it was coming. They could see it 100%. Old Jin most of this year, they would have just gone through the bottom side jungle, not even taken that risk. This time, they decisively act to take out the victor.
But let's think back to that replay. Who's making the decisive engage? It's Trace. And look, Maokai can dive turrets, Rumble can't. Those are two champions that he's basically been relevant on. Maokai can't do what we just saw there from Orianna as reliable because of the AoE initiation, the instant knock-up. There's just so much less downside to diving a turret with Malphite. He just hilariously tanked about 48 turret shots afterwards while they were picking up the exit kills. A champion like Malphite coming into the meta, there's a reason why I basically said I was 100% certain Malphite will be played by Trace this series, and somehow he's got it 3 games as Najin just keep tilting off bans towards GBM.
Yeah. Well, it's a testament to GBM and the depth of his champion pool, too, actually forcing that Gangplank ban after game 1. So here we go. Baron up for Jinair, 6-0. This is not going to work either, probably, as Duke comes in. He's going to not get on the... Oh, they get onto GBM, and so can they kite this out right now? GBM already down. Trace trying to escape from this, and the volley is there. There's another twisted advance. Duke getting low, though. Is he going to be able to walk out? Yes, he will, but how many kills can they pick up on the backside? Jump in a flash by Che. They get a kill. They almost lose 3 people, and they do stop the siege.
Still was a really poor play from Jinair. They had pink wards on their flanks and still disrespected home guard Maokai. One of the most reliable ways with this targeted initiation, even more reliable than Malphite when it comes to getting on a priority target. That target was GBM, even with all the AP. Fell instantly, so just desperately poor play.
He walked up way too close here. Chilling Smite opened it up onto him, and Duke sees Pilot, just turns on to GBM immediately.
Smart, remember, he had a direct route to Ashe and just realized, let's just kill GBM instantly.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. GBM didn't even have a chance to use his flash or his shockwave right there, so isolating that kill, certainly the most important. Man, they get so close to losing 3 people, though.
But isn't it nice that when you organize your early game, when you get your shot calling improved, you can still have mistakes in the late game, like Najin didn't, sorry, like Jinair did in the previous game, like Jinair have just done here. But you can see the results aren't as cataclysmic as their many late game shot calling errors they had during the regular season, just because they've tightened up their first 25 minutes immeasurably.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. I mean, when we think back to a lot of these Jinair losses, some of them came for very silly reasons, like outfoxing themselves with like TF teleports and then Destiny gates back on other parts of the map. And this time around, they have more leeway than they really have had for most of this year.
Gonna keep pushing. Siva's woefully out of position. They do have a lot of wave clear, but it's a Rylai's Void Staff. Victor still does a lot of work, but the damage is not there.
They have such a hard time clearing out. I mean, this Cannonman, you just won't die because they have no attack damage there.
Banner of Command coming through from Elise this time. Yep, makes sense. They don't have the cannon support, so not as naturally going to itemize, and they're not worried about wombo combos. They're not worried about cannon initiation, because every time cannon initiates, multiple Najin people die.
Yes. Yes, they do. Okay, Dragon is live right now. Could be number 3 here for Jinair at 32 minutes. They already have some good wards up and around that jungle. Che just going to pop down a pink and then take out what he can here.
Che is actually pretty solo blocking this choke. Traces his Banshee Veil, but for now probably not going to be relevant. Does Pilot have Flash? Pilot has both summoners.
Jinair needs to group up right here. Pilot finally gets onto the other side of the pit. Bit hairy there for a minute. He didn't have any wards to see flanks. There's a Righteous Glory, and there's a nice block again on the arrow by OQ.
Been on form with that so far this series, but Jinair get the objective. Look for a pick, don't get it, back away. This is the new Jinair, Monte Cristo.
I mean, they look smart.
You look befuzzled.
I am befuddled. This particular game is just not what I was expecting to see this evening. And at Jinair's best, if we think about Jinair at their best, they have been able to have good shot calling. They do play the run around the map and take objectives very defensively, and that's what I really liked about them. But there was just no consistency to that. And Papa, I don't think we can take from tonight that this is going to be what we're seeing from Jinair, even moving forward throughout the rest of this gauntlet, because they need to show that they can play without Malphite, in particular, I think. And that will be a test, I believe, against CJ if they do indeed win this game, that they have such an advantage in at the moment.
I mean, Malphite's an auto ban, you'd have to think, or a takeaway. Of course, Shy another tank player that we just mentioned that Trace might be a straight upgrade on Shy, but Shy would obviously be able to play the mFire just fine and would fit into his champion pool. So I do expect mFire to be contested or banned just because suddenly, and with the only new variable really being the mFire, suddenly they can initiate, suddenly they can make decisive plays under turret. You have a guy who can initiate with an AoE knock-up CC, uncleansable, and tank the turret for days. The go button is real with mFire. And honestly, mFire Orianna's, that's the nth degree.
Yeah. It does make the rest of this gauntlet, it makes you really wonder. The nice thing for Jin Air is they really haven't had to show anything.
Nope. They get to show Malphite 3 games in a row.
They showed GP, that's about it. You could have anticipated the Malphite pretty easily. You could have anticipated the Ashe for Pilot. The GP mid was a little bit of the wild card that they did reveal to any future opponents that they could have.
But man, the ability, the crazy linking of the powder kegs that he was able to put together, that might actually just force a ban based on one play. We don't have any other data, but that one match was SOAS level linking of his abilities, especially in lane. Didn't really have to do too much in team fights just because they were so ahead at the time, but even if they just get an auto ban out of that one performance, still a good thing for Jin Air, because this is a team where enemy teams would just ban 3 junglers and they'd be shut down completely during the regular season. This series, GBM's drawn plenty of bans, and finally other players are putting bans on the board. Suddenly Malphite, Gangplank, all looking like must-ban champions against Jin Air.
Curious questions. Game's not over yet. Certainly Najin could take a very preferential team fight, but Jin Air, I think, is just going to be happy to play the game as Pilot laughs to himself and throws out a volley.
Only hope is that Tank went for a super low damage build. It's been punished by the fact that they just haven't really been able to contest objectives because Tank can't walk up and explode people like we expect from Victor in the past few months. So you give enough time when we finally see the Hex score finally upgraded, a death cap specifically coming into the build, maybe that will be a window back into the game, but the pressure loss for literally no gain just makes me wonder.
Pilot now with the QSS too.
Had it a while actually, it's about 6-7 minutes.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's a pretty important pickup, and they're just going to go for the Baron. They have monopolized that vision, and here we go. TP coming in from the side. They're going to get the Baron, though, before anything goes out. Close, though, as Peanut gets into the pit. Now, what's the reaction going to be? Peanut just gets focused down inside. Had to flash for that to get in, and here's the follow-up. Arrow onto Duke. Trace coming in. Trace doesn't have his ultimate, already used it. Duke will get hit by the Cocoon. They're trying to get out with the Gravity Field and the Chaos Storm. Nice disengage, but here we go. Glacial Fissure pops Duke up, and where's the follow-up? And it will be right there. Duke still on the run, but the stun from the Braum passive is the end of the Maokai. And there's a Baron. Here's a minion wave, and here is likely a broken base for Najin.
Yeah, the minion is promoted as well, so this base is certainly going to break. Trace doesn't take damage, doesn't even break the Orianna shield anytime soon. Jin Air Green Wings. Wouldn't have thought 3-0 SKT a few days ago, but of course a lot more data points in the history of the SKT organization to say maybe that was our bad. This one, though, this is something very different.
I am absolutely shocked that Jin Air was able to pull this off, especially the 3-0. If you had said 3-2 Jin Air, I'd be like, okay, I can see it.
I want stronger words, Monte Cristo. Absolutely shock's not enough, but we'll watch this replay again. I mean, Peanut, he tried. I mean, he just realized that's all they could do. That's usually the poor shot calling to give yourself up in the late game because 5v4, it's such a crapshoot to pick up the Baron. That's probably too big a cost, but the eventual re-engage, it's 5v4. There's so much CC out of the kit of Ashe, out of the kit of Elise. They were always going to pick up future kills, but I don't think you're using strong enough language. This is a 3-0 for a Jin Air lineup playing decisive initiation League of Legends. Has that been the way in any part of 2015?
No. Absolutely not. I am floored. And certainly, again, Najin has not played the best games of League of Legends tonight. Nope. But this is undoubtedly a transformation for this Jin Air team. They are showing us things we have never seen before.
I guess the only question we have left is it a one-night transformation?
Yep.
Is it a one-note transformation with the likes of Malphite? We don't know that yet.
Will they turn back into a pumpkin on Friday when they have to face CJ?
A lot of teams can bring it up for one night. Spen, who managed to get their win this season, Jin Air are putting Najin in the dumpster in a playoff for Worlds in a high-pressure environment. But is it mFire? Is it just that they got everything together on the night? But all that being said, I mean, what a performance.
Yeah, is it Najin's kind of not even really showing up in that pick comp in game one, and then perhaps using these players that we really haven't seen played at all this season in the form of Tank and Peanut here in the crucial deciding game?
What has to happen for you as a coach to put in these players when it's Watch and Goon with all that experience? The question I have is Trace, he's going in.
And there we go, right on the Tank. Tank just gets destroyed with the combo. And now everybody just fighting in a wealth of AoE. Najin, looks like they may be able to get out of this. Jin Air focusing down the turret. OQ in the back line. Pilot flashes forward with heal just to kill OQ. And this is it, guys. This is a shocking 3-0 from the Jin Air Green Wings to advance to the next round of the finals. That is it. Najin's hopes at Worlds have been dashed, and Jin Air's intense practice that we heard about coming into this match pays off in spades.
Over 3 weeks of practice against top teams, the likes of LGD, Chinese teams, Korean teams, has obviously paid off. We were told that they were doing favorably against some of the top teams in the world, but we didn't expect this level of performance. Decisive shot calling, smart initiation, late game being able to break dives and just go for those aggressive plays. This is a Jin Air we have not seen, and even the crowd is flawed, Monte Cristo. This is some crazy results.
Yeah, absolutely, and a lot of these Jin Air fans have been here for a long time. A lot of these Najin fans have been here for a long time. It's a heartbreaker for Najin, to be sure. It looked like at the end of the season they were finally fixing their issues. I thought they'd beat Ku, and they fell